Okay, I ran and got my cable and got plugged in. Just to rehash, because we're starting all over again. There's a dish that I saw on Facebook quite a bit, and it was for really cheesy mashed potatoes. I've made it a couple times and played with the recipe. It actually comes from a French recipe referred to as pommes puree, or something along those lines, because I don't speak French. Sorry for the battery going dead. So what I'm doing here, I melted a couple tablespoons of butter. I'm making, basic roux, butter and flour, cooking that together. In this pot, I've got I'm making a small batch, a white potato and a sweet potato. But I really do like this and the creaminess and the cheesiness of it. Basically what you're doing is you're just cooking your, mashed potatoes. You add butter and whatever else to season it up. Well, we're just adding that, doing it in a separate container. We're doing the butter, adding some flour, cooking the roux. But we're going to make a cheesy sauce, and then we're going to put our potatoes into the cheesy sauce. So I've got my flour and my butter, and they're browning up nicely. After they're good and browned and cooked, you don't want raw flour. You want that good and cooked. And it gets very thick, almost like a paste. There we go. Steven's at a meeting tonight, so I'm hoping to save him some. However, I might just eat it all myself. We'll see. We'll see how piggy I get. Okay, so I got my flour nice and browned in there. I'm going to add about a cup of milk. Okay. And I'm going to stir this milk around. I want the milk to thicken up. I want to make sure I get all that flour and butter mixture off the sides and off the bottom. Otherwise it makes burnies, and I don't want any burnies. I'm also, at this point, going to throw in salt and pepper. A little kosher salt. With some ground up pepper. Okay. This is bubbling a little bit. Got to kind of bring it back to a boil. And then our sauce will start thickening. I want that to thicken up a little bit, and then we're going to add cheese. Now, normally when I make mashed potatoes, I leave the peelings on and I just wash them real good because I like that. However, I'm going to rice the potatoes, and they don't rice well with the peelings on. This is a more refined mashed potato, not your rough and tumble country potato. There we go. Our milk's thickening up. I turn the heat down just a little bit. And I've got about a cup to a cup and a half of cheeses. I got some mozzarella in here, and I got some cheddar, because that's what I have. I think if you got like a smoky Gouda or something, it'd be really tasty. But I want you guys to try this before Thanksgiving, because you just might want to make Thanksgiving. Yeah, that gives you a whole year. Try it before Christmas, because it really is something special. Okay. Once, I'm going to turn the heat way down to low now. Actually, I'm going to turn it off. This is very thick, very pasty, very saucy, kind of in between the sauce and the paste. But the cast iron is going to keep it plenty hot. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, have you ever used a ricer? See this thing? You just smash your potatoes right in there. And it makes them come out very fine. Very fine, very small, rather than, again, even with beaters, and you beat the potatoes so much, you bring out the gluten in the potatoes, and you can make them kind of sticky. So if you use something like a ricer, it passes through this once. It doesn't have a chance to get all sticky like potatoes normally will. So these have been boiling until they're very, very soft. And I'm going to scoop some out and put them in my ricer. This is why they have to be peeled. Because they're going to come out, texturally, it's going to come out a whole lot better. So now I'm going to squeeze these potatoes right into this sauce. No comments on what you think this might look like. Squeeze, squeeze. I'm going to dump the extra water out. I'm going to stir that up in here. Now, of course, the French, wanting everything to look special, you know, would only use the white potatoes. But I like sweet potatoes, so I'm going to add some extra sweet potato in there. Those, I'm going to give them one more run through. Probably could have done my potatoes just a little bit longer. But I'm hungry. I just got home from work, and I've got band practice tonight. There, I'm going to stir that up. Okay. More potatoes. This is so smooth. And whereas mashed potatoes, you know, they're 95% potatoes and then a little milk and butter or cheese, whatever you're adding to them. This is probably more of a 50-50. Do you see that coming out of there? It just kind of squirms and worms its way out. That's ricing. This is, the texture of it is looking really, really good. Because like I say, since we're not beating up the potatoes, their consistency is much creamier without being all stuck together, gluttony and all. Gluttony instead of gluttony. Some of them mashed in there didn't go through. Okay. I think I have one more batch of potatoes in here. Oh, and I got one other thing I'm adding too. Okay, and mash those up. Oof. Mush. Again, I'm going to dump whatever watery out of there because I don't want to water down all this. So last night I made roasted butternut squash with basically pork chops. I'll go over those pork chops with you sometime. Instead of making pork chops out of pork chops, Stephen mostly will buy the ribs, you know, the country ribs, boneless. So I just took some of those and I pounded them out until they were flat. So that was our ribs that I made into pork chops. He buys the ribs every week, these boneless, skinless, these boneless ribs. And so I'm always looking for something different, so like I say, I just pounded them up and did them that way. This, folks, I'm telling you. Oh, so what I was saying is, I had this leftover butternut squash, so I microwaved that, and I'm dumping that in there too. I have to pull this one back out. So roasting them didn't make them as soft as boiling them. But with the seasoning that was used in roasting them, all that flavoring and everything, I think they're going to be just fine. Yeah, they're a little tougher. So those I'm just going to smush up a little bit. Now my roasted butternut squash has been recreated. This is why I say I saw the recipe, but I make recipes mine. I mix them up and do what I want with them. They're just suggestions anyway. And see, there's questions there. I'll get to your questions in just a moment. Okay. So that's all we're doing with this. So like I said, some of my squash didn't come up the way I wanted it to, but that's what happens. Okay. Now, this, get this mixed up and I'll show you. So it's very smooth, except for the couple lumps of butternut squash. Very creamy, very cheesy. So I want to show you this. See how it's kind of... It would be smoother if my squash was cooked a little bit more. But it is very smooth and it's very cheesy. Oh, it's delicious. It is absolutely delicious. Yes, do this for Christmas instead of your regular mashed potatoes. You are going to blow everybody away. And whether you do all white or you, oh my gosh. Yeah, that might not be here when Stephen gets home from church. But like I say, whether you're going to do it with all white potatoes or a mixture of white and sweet potatoes, just make sure they're cooked really, really soft. I threw the leftover butternut squash in it because I had it, and it's good. But enjoy it. Get a ricer, Jess. Samantha needs a ricer. You go back and watch a little bit at the beginning. Potatoes were pretty much in larger than the cubes. Normally when you're making mashed potatoes, you do it really, really small, so they cook kind of fast and evenly. But then you got all those little small potatoes that you're beating. Because I was putting it through the ricer, I had the potatoes a little bit bigger. So I wasn't trying to dig out real tiny pieces to put through the ricer. But I have my leftover pork chops now too, and I'm going to put potatoes on it. I'm going to eat my food while it's hot. Thanks for joining me. Have a wonderful evening. Katie, it's delicious. Richard, go back and watch it. I'm all done now. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.